So briefly, a little story, my story. A story of success that was built one day at a time out of adversity and resilience. When I was about 13, I had been raised in a good family, well-to-do. My father and mother provided everything with cars and drivers and house help and in the best schools. It was during the Idi Amin regime at the time when we had a notorious government in place. And the state was using the state machinery to kill its own people. I won't say it was Amin in particular as an individual, but it was under his regime. And for absolutely no reason at all, my father was plucked out of his home and butchered. I saw his body and I just had no words. It looks to many people like it was a long, long time ago, especially to the youth. But to me, it's as fresh as it was yesterday. The sight of seeing your father like that. Not only did we lose the breadwinner, but we lost everything. We walked out of the home the way we were and never went back. And all the things that he had acquired, his properties and vehicles and farms, were all taken. So within 1 month, going to school became a problem. All the friends you knew, the well-to-do friends, were now shunning you. It became very hard. Others had gone into exile. So we lived a very hard life. And those were very dark days for many of us in Uganda. I counted those days, and they went on and on and on. 8 hard years of Idi Amin. We reached a level where we had lost hope, and we felt the sun will not rise anymore. Until 1979, when a group of soldiers with the support of the Tanzanian army marched on Ugandan army, and Amin fell. To me, that's when the sun rose again. My father was a gentleman, a kind gentleman, loved so many people. My mother had 6 children when he died, and she had to raise us. I was the eldest at 13, and she was pregnant, expecting the last child. So it was a very hard time that we went through. But out of the pain, out of the struggles, I have slowly had to rebuild the business and rebuild the name so that the name can be respected again in society. And that was the driving force. What did I have most of the time? My belt. This is what I wore around my belt. I lived with this every single day. Grit. You have to have guts so that you can take chances, take risks. You have to have resilience because you're going to fall. And you're going to fall so many times. And you've got to pick yourself up quickly. And you have to have initiative. You've got to always be looking for initiative. Where can you have an angle? And that began when my father died. I didn't have initiative before he had died. I suddenly woke up. Academically became smarter. In sports, I kept trying a lot harder because life had given me such a hard blow. And I needed the tenacity to keep running. It was like running a marathon. Until today, I've never given up. But those words, those 4 letters, grit, protected me and guided me to who I am today. When you look at the meaning of the word grit, grit is really a positive trait. It's based on your passion, your perseverance, and motivation. Sure. These are key words for any young person, boy or girl. Embrace grit because you will need it if you want to climb that ladder of success. I knew I had to keep going, and as I achieved a bit of success, I realized I had to be conscious about the environment in which we live. So you can go the distance, but you've got to go green. You've got to think about the people you work with. You've got to think about Mother Nature, the planet. It cannot be all about profit. Profit is important, but put it at the end of the queue. You will make profit if you do things in a sustainable way and be focused on what's happening around you. Do not go for profit at any price. That is not sustainable. I had to be decisive, all the decisions I made. And I was young, but I felt this was the right time. I rolled out shops in Uganda with MTN. I went to Tanzania with Vodacom. I went with Safaricom in Kenya. And I rolled out over 170 shops across the region. When MTN went to Nigeria, I took a plunge into Nigeria, and that was a hard market. Very aggressive, but a fantastic market. Huge, a lot of potential, but you've got to be sharp. If you blink, you lose. You've got to be it's a very competitive market. I employed so many staff, and it was a pleasure to see all these young people because nearly all of them were youth. They looked up to me as a father. And in the process, I've touched thousands of young people today, and that gives me a lot of pride, a lot of satisfaction. I had to diversify my business. I went into the hotel business. And this is an area where I couldn't get enough information, enough research, but I had to plunge in. Sure. I knew I had to diversify. And making decisions without all the information is necessary. Too many people procrastinate for too long, thinking of what they want to do. Hesitant. Procrastination is a devil. You must not accept procrastination. Once you decide on something, jump. Just go for it. I entered the hotel business. just before we hosted Chogam. And I went on to build another hotel because now I understood the hotel business. And as the American saying goes, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So the hotel was working, so why was I going to tamper with that model? So the hotel business became something of interest. And it taught me customer service. It took us to a new level altogether. I continued my diversification, and I needed to build passive income because you can't be working all the time. I wanted businesses that are earning you revenue. Your money is working for you while you're asleep or when you're on a holiday or you're doing something else. And that's why I had to form the habits of success and invested in apartments and office buildings. But how do you do that? You can only do that by having the ability, the culture of saving money. And if you start early, you must start the culture of saving money early. So many people think they'll start saving when they are 40. Because they have too little now, it's not worth saving. You need to embed it in your system that you have to save money. Because you cannot invest without saving. You need to be frugal with money. And that's the biggest difference. When we see our Asian friends, especially from China and India, extremely frugal with money. They negotiate for everything. They look for the discount. They don't just spend their money. You need to get up early every day. Every day. And you must enjoy getting up early. Even on a Sunday, get up early and work hard. Don't just work hard, work smart. What do I mean by work smart? Research. You've got to continuously research. Don't spend a penny without researching. You'll be a fool. You must always be smart. You must manage your expenses because expenses creep up on you. Before you realize it, the expenses have walked away with your business. You must manage your time well. Too many young people think I've got a lot of time ahead of me. You won't realize how quickly that time goes. Before you know it, you are 60 and you haven't accomplished half of your dreams. Manage your time well. Build cash-generating assets. Make sure you focus on that. So many people see assets. Even your home, you may sleep in it. It's not generating cash. It gives you peace of mind. I give you a break on that one. But every other asset should be cash-generating, not cash depreciating and diminishing. I moved into energy because the country needed energy. There was a period where we were in blackouts all the time. And I wanted to have social impact in what I was doing. How can I do more than just do a small business to make money? So I got in the business of generating power, and I built a thermal power plant, 90 megawatts, in the country, in Tororo, a place called Tororo in Uganda. Then I realized I had a huge carbon footprint, and I needed to offset that carbon footprint. So I started planting trees, and we planted a square mile of trees, eucalyptus. They've grown considerably. Even today, people are there inspecting them and saying, why aren't you cutting these trees down? They are so rich. They are good for electricity poles. But that wasn't my goal. My goal was to reduce my carbon footprint and do something for Mother Nature. I also wanted to do something in the energy space, but that was more sustainable. And so I was amongst the first companies in Uganda that set up a solar power plant of 10 megawatts, a commercial solar plant, which provided power. Because this thing called electricity had become a myth. In so many African countries, we just don't have enough electricity. I am so proud today that Uganda has got an excess of supply of electricity. It's in abundance, it's reliable, and it's now affordable. We're still working on affordability and finding ways and means to bring it down. And I happen to sit on the company that, chair the company that distributes the electricity to 97% of this country. So I have a bird's eye view of what's happening. And I see the impact of electricity on people's lives. When the Europeans came to Africa, like they came to Uganda, to Kenya, they built a railway line from Mombasa through Nairobi, all the way through Uganda, up to Kilembe. They wanted one thing, and one thing only. They wanted copper. Sure. Why? To build copper lines, so they can have electricity in their country. They had discovered electricity, and they needed to wire up the whole continent. They needed the copper. They went to Zambia. They went wherever there was copper, and that's what they were looking for. Now we are not thinking about that. We've got to see we've got all these resources. We must use them to solve the problems of our people, the people around us. So let's look at life generally. Whether you are in Africa or anywhere in the world, you have certain basic needs. These are largely categorized as through Maslow's theory as food, clothing, shelter, and maybe locomotion. I have added in there cell phone, because a cell phone is an essential part of everybody's life today. Nearly everybody has a phone. Initially, they thought Africa did not need mobile phones, but we do, because we have the same feelings. We have loved ones. You want to check on your children. Are they safe at home when you're away? You want to check on your wife. You want to check on people in hospital. You want to check on your relatives up country. So the needs are the same for all of us. And the cell phone, I realized, was a magical tool that helped connect all of us. It was an enabler. Of course, we need all the other services. I won't go into them now, in the interest of time. But this slide is available to everybody. Now, the biggest threat. Probably a threat that is across the continent. I know it is steeply so in Uganda. Population is growing so fast. In every African country. Uganda is right at the pinnacle, right at the top, with a growth of 3.2% growth. That growth rate is scary. If Africa is producing 32 million and Uganda is about 1.5 to 2 million new babies every year, that's a scary thing. Because we just can't support these numbers. We're not growing fast enough. The infrastructure, the roads, the police, the judiciary, the schools, the hospitals, we just can't have enough of these for all these people. But we could if everybody had a decent job. One of our existential threats is jobs. We need jobs for the youth, jobs for women, we need jobs for everybody. If we had jobs that are decent, dignified, well-paying jobs, we wouldn't have these challenges. And these challenges of jobs, people don't realize, will lead to civil unrest and criminality. This has happened everywhere in Africa. We see it happening almost every 5 years. And it's not going to go away. And the biggest reason is the underlying challenge. People say it's because of elections, but other countries have elections. The first world has elections every 3 or 5 years. But they don't fall into disarray like we do. So what is it about Africa? Is it because of this democracy that plays on our divisions, divides us along ethnicity and religion? This is not agreeable. This is not acceptable. We've got to find a way of moving on. Democracy is good, but at what price? Sure. Uganda has just come out of elections. In November, it was a period of turmoil. It was short and well managed, but still, it was a shock to the system. Why can't we have systems that work smoothly? Partly because of the bigger or the widening of this inequality of income. When the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and that divide is getting wider, we will certainly have civil unrest. And countries which we thought are much further ahead, like South Africa, it was an eyesore. And it was heart-wrenching to see what happened in South Africa recently. In 2021, a country with an abundant infrastructure, a country that we look to as big brother, we felt embarrassed. We felt ashamed. This shouldn't be happening to South Africa in this period of time. But the income inequality there is so big. And there's such a concentration of wealth in Sandton and some of the pockets, Cape Town, and the rest of the people are living in poverty. And it's made worse by their weather. When they have winter, and they go to winter where temperatures drop to 8 degrees, to 6 degrees, to 4 degrees, they have snow. And these people are ill-equipped to handle this. So that's why they'll have all these challenges. And they are getting this attitude of survival for the fittest. Regardless of the gender, young women are getting involved in looting, in fighting. This breaks my heart. This is shaming for us, all of us in Africa, what we saw in South Africa. How long will this be the image of Africa? An image in tatters. This is not acceptable. What future do we hold if the youth get corrupted at such a tender age? Will it be reversible, the damage that has happened? When these people grow up to live a normal, decent life and be philanthropic and learn to give and to share, what kind of values are we instilling in these people? This young girl is hardly 14 or 15, and there she is learning to loot. Maybe her mother and sisters are doing the same. This is terrible. At the end of the day, we reap what we sow. The choices we make today will decide whether we have a dividend and build a city like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, or have a disaster and remain in disaster, like some of the situations we see, the ugly pictures we see in Africa. So, the challenge of jobs is a big one. Where are these jobs? Because we've got a lot of construction to do. We've not yet industrialized, we're just beginning. We couldn't have industrialized without electricity. It was always a joke when we talked about industrialization. But now that we have an abundance of electricity, we can industrialize. We can do agribusiness. And of course, that focus, the easy focus, ICT and services. That's where the women and youth, it's not about muscle power, it's brain power. And that's where there's so much opportunity that I urge the young people in Africa, embrace ICT and services. Before I talk about money, and see how much money Africa needs, let me try to give you a visual picture of what is $1 trillion. That's the number of millions you need to make $1 trillion. On the right-hand side, you see those two pallets. On each pallet is $100 million. So those two pallets there is $200 million. But that is the difference between $1 trillion, because you talked about the first world spending trillions of dollars. That's what $1 trillion looks like compared to $1 million. I'm just trying to give you a visual, a graphic presentation of what $1 trillion really looks like.
Like President Reagan.
Thank you. Now, to put things in perspective, we ask ourselves, how much did the United States, one country, spend on fighting the Taliban, where they have conceded now and given back to Taliban after 20 years. Another terrorists in other countries, in Syria, in Yemen, in Libya, in Iraq. 2.8 trillion. Now that is a breathtaking number. 2.8 trillion. And that's a modest number, a conservative number. That amount of money spent on being a global policeman. When you understand the numbers and say, spending almost $3 trillion, just under $3 trillion in these countries and walk away with nothing. Look at Iraq, look at the state it's in. Look at Libya, is it better off? Look at Syria, is it better off? The Taliban were in charge when America went in, and they've conceded and given back the Taliban. Have we changed anything? The trajectory is the same. What US has spent in the last 2 years on COVID alone, the stimulus, they call it economic stimulus, 7 trillion.
Sure.
Now they're talking about infrastructure stimulus. They're going to invest another 4 trillion. That's almost $14 trillion spent almost recklessly. It's their prerogative, it's their money. Almost recklessly, in my view.
Sure.
But as a leader, the USA should not be being a policeman, and should be instead being a problem solver. If we wanted to fix the whole of Africa's infrastructure, from Cape Town to Cairo, from Lagos to Addis Ababa, we only need $3 or $4 trillion. Everything would change. We'd have the best roads, the best infrastructure, best schools, best health facilities. We cannot live with such an ever-widening gap in income. And this vicious circle of poverty that we see everywhere around us, it will always follow war and income inequality. That is the mother of all these challenges.
Sure.
Hopefully we don't see these kind of pictures in Africa again, of extreme poverty, of extreme malnourishment. This is my prayer. But we must focus on jobs. And the importance of these jobs, because the absence of jobs is equal to the loss of self-dignity, of self-esteem. And if you grow up at that stage when you are young without self-esteem, it's not something you just get overnight. So we've got to address it from a very early age. Now, where are we as a continent? Africa needs 5 critical factors for sustained development and wealth. To create this wealth, we're talking about prosperity for all. It needs, number 1, good leadership. And when I say good leadership, I mean enlightened, not just educated. They must be enlightened. Enlightened, effective, and ethical. The 3 E's. Enlightened, effective, and ethical leaders. That's what will change Africa's trajectory. We must have a policy of no war, strictly no war in Africa. We can't keep fighting one another. I look all around me, Somalia, South Sudan, the DRC, the countries around us, like we had an oasis of peace in Uganda. We are glad that some parts of Africa are calming down. War is a terrible thing. We've got to make a policy, whether it's at African Union level, of no war. And then we've got to put aggressive, strong measures to check corruption, because corruption is another disaster. But more of that on another day. We've got to build the hard infrastructure, the roads, the railways, the electricity. We need to build stronger institutions and not strong individuals. Having this strong man syndrome is destroying us, because as soon as a strong man moves away, the institutions are not built, the society breaks down. And we need to embrace a new education system where technology is driving it. Online learning, digital age, better health services, and social security. These are some of the things we've got to deal with in Africa if we're going to have change. Of course, I would not be doing a service to my country or to many of the African countries if I do not end by talking about tourism.
Sure.
Africa has got so much potential, so much promise. Africa is so unspoiled in so many areas. When I look around me, just in Uganda, we have this huge family of gorillas in their natural habitat. We have these tree-climbing lions, where you see the only part of the world where you go and you can't see the lions on the ground, and you find them all perched in trees. These are things that I call wonders of the world. We may not make it the 7 wonders, but certainly these are wonders of the world. This gorilla is such a beautiful beast, so powerful, so strong, and coming near it is nothing like seeing it in a zoo. You've got to see it in its habitat. A gentle creature with so much might, so much power. It could break you, every bone in your body, with its fingers. It's so strong. It makes you feel scared. You want to run. At the same time, you are so scared you can't run. It's the hormones that you release in your body that give you this exhilarating feeling that, wow, coming to see these gorillas is an awesome experience. An experience you will not find anywhere else in the world. And of course, the serene beauty of many of our crater lakes and hills, undulating, forever, everywhere in Uganda. Beautiful, a very beautiful country. So at the end of the day, I must end on this. Africa's destiny is in your hands,
Sure.
in our hands, in my hands. If we keep winning, if we keep working and staying on the trajectory we're supposed to, Africa will change. By the year 2063, when they talk about the Africa Free Trade Zone, Continental Free Trade Zone, that's way too far. Why do we wait for 2063? Let it happen now. Let's target 2040. Let's target 2035. We can make a difference. China has changed so much in the last 30 years by copying what was being done in America. Vietnam is copying what's being done in China. Japan copied what was done in America and Europe. And they evolved. It didn't take hundreds of years.
Sure.
30 years, 20 years, we can transform our continent. I hope and pray the youth are listening. Let's involve everybody. The women need a special place, gender parity, and together we can change Africa. Thank you very much.
I don't know whether to clap, to stand, or to shout. Thank you so much, Dr. Patrick Bisature. I mean, as we're speaking, and there are a couple of questions that are coming up online, but as we're speaking, a couple things were going through my mind. And even though you've answered quite a number of them, let me just ask one or two. You've rightly said it. For Africa to change and for businesses to thrive, the issue of education, quality education, is key. The issue of leadership, and here, as you mentioned, we're not just talking about political leaders, because what I've seen is that a lot of times when we talk about leadership in Africa, everybody's pointing fingers at the politicians. Technology is extremely important, and as you mentioned, but you come to Africa, and let's face it, technology is so expensive. Take internet, for example. Now, from where you sit, and I'm glad that you are in technology as well, how can there's no doubt that technology can enhance the delivery and the fast growth of SMEs and startups in Africa. But in terms of resources, these people don't have it. The startups don't have it. How, in your view, do you think that Africa can work hard to make technology, particularly internet, affordable by SMEs so that they can leverage on that to grow their business? That's number one. Number two, we've talked about education. I mean, this is not the first time we are going to talk about education. We've talked about quality education, and for centuries, we seem not to have gotten it. So from where you sit, what must Africa do, particularly in education, to make sure that the next generation of entrepreneurs that are coming would appreciate or will be empowered in a manner that the critical thinking you talked about becomes a part and parcel of them? Because it's serious. So what have you got to say about that?
Okay. On technology, first of all. When I started selling mobile phones 20 years ago, a mobile phone cost $3,500. A mobile phone, a basic Motorola. Then the price came down. The Ericsson became very popular and stayed for a long time. Today, you can buy a mobile phone for $20. It will still deliver the service. It will be reliable. The battery lasts, even if you have to go and charge it, and it will last for a week. So technology has moved forward. The world has changed. So technology becomes available, user-friendly. I kept urging Nokia when I was working with Nokia. We've got to find a way to bring the price down. And they kept saying, but then we reduce your profits. Yes, it's the only way, otherwise the market is going to evolve. They hesitated. They took their time. Another company started developing capacity below them. And before they knew it, the ground had shifted, and Nokia was no longer the number one mobile phone manufacturer in the world. So you've got to be responsive to what's happening around you. Internet. If I had my way, internet should be free. Like we don't pay for oxygen. We pay for electricity, but a nominal fee. It's not a major barrier when you're starting a business. So long as the electricity is available, you will pay the cost. It's an incidental cost. The same with the internet. I went to South Korea, and a good part of South Korea was internet is free for everybody. It's not because they have an abundance of money, but they have removed the gatekeepers, the rent seekers. The cost of internet should be as low as possible globally. It's the guys who have laid the infrastructure. Most of them have recouped their money.
Sure.
But they're gatekeepers. Before it crosses Mombasa, they want to get paid. Before it enters Uganda, they want to get paid. So the difference between the price of internet in Uganda and Kenya, for instance, we're almost paying twice the price as it is in Kenya. It's because of the gatekeepers, the people who control it, who are making a margin. Yes, if they've made some investment, they need to recoup. But we've got to move away. And how can we influence that? Public policy. Government can move in and influence it, remove taxes. Unfortunately, they are taxing some of these things, which is exact opposite. In Tanzania, they are removing taxes. Even on mobile phones, smartphones, because the smartphone is a tool to access the internet, a tool for learning, a tool for business. That's how they see it. But some other societies are not yet that switched on. And this new lady in Tanzania is going to do wonders if she stays on that trajectory. Forward-thinking, open-minded, flexible, dynamic. She will change the lives of her people.
Sure.
That's what has got to happen in all the societies around us. And eventually, price comes down. When you talk of education, it should be online. It shouldn't be about cramming, memorizing. It should be science subjects largely, the STEM subjects. It should be about critical thinking. It should be about solving problems. You can't go to a university as old as Makerere University in Uganda, spend 4 years there. You have never even gone outside the local community around you to see what are their problems. You come out elated that I've graduated, I've got a degree, with a feeling of entitlement, I need a job.
Sure.
And you are demanding for the job, but you've never solved anybody's problem. What was the point of that knowledge? 3 and 4, 5 years at university doing zilch. Then you look for a job with your CV. We need to change that mindset, where people use education as an enabler. It teaches you skills. Fortunately, people are beginning to understand the benefit of skills with your hands, sorting out problems, fixing things, whether you're a plumber, an engineer, oil well rig, because now we're going to get into the era of oil in Uganda. Learn to do things with your hands, with your skills. Earn a living. And that's more important than this formal book road education. I don't blame those who are doing it. We've followed the colonial system and the curriculum that was designed for the colonial days. And as I've said, it is now obsolete.
Sure. And I like that. I'm just thinking one day perhaps there could be some solution where, whether it's a dialogue, whether it's, policymakers that can engage, because this issue we've been talking about it over and over and over and over. There's a question that has come up online. Somebody is asking, one of the major problems facing startups is finance, resources. Now, somebody is 23 years old, he has a big dream, he wants to start a business, and he or she feels that he doesn't have money. From your practical experience, and reading about you, you've done so much, you've raised so many people, is it always about money when it's resources for a startup?
Okay. I like to say that when you talk about capital, it's a two-sided coin, two-faced coin. One side of the coin is, why is capital so expensive in Africa? It's so unfair that a startup in the United States can borrow money at 2.5% and start up a business. Whereas a mortgage to buy a house in Uganda today is 22%, which means every 5 years, in fact less than 5 years, you buy a new house for the bank, just in interest. You'll never finish the mortgage. It's madness. How can the cost of finance be so varied? Again, it's the gatekeepers. Factor country risk. Inflation in Uganda is 3.5%, 4%. It doesn't go above that. And the food basket is the biggest contributor. It's so stable because we produce so much food. So there is no excuse for these high interest rates. And these gatekeepers, the rent seekers, the guys who make a fortune because the system is designed that way. We need to find a solution. So we've got to mobilize our savings.
Sure.
That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, regardless of the cost, however little capital you have, start with that. I have not known anybody who waited to have all his ducks in a row and everything is unorganized, then he can take off. Even in America, in Japan, in Russia, in UK, people don't have enough capital. Even though borrowing rates are very low, they say we don't have enough capital. There's a demand. It will never be enough. So start with what you've got and grow it. There are so many opportunities because we're coming from such a low base. There are so many opportunities. Grow your capital. Begin by investing in things that will make that capital grow. And slowly the circle will become bigger and bigger and bigger.
Sure.
And once it's big enough, because you've got discipline, you don't touch the capital, then you can afford to take off what is dividend or profit. And that's what you live off. That culture of being frugal. China has done it. Vietnam has done it. Singapore has done it. Thailand has done it. All the Asian tigers have done it. What is it that we can do in Africa? Surely we can learn from them.
I'm going to come back to you, but we're almost running out of time. But let me just go and say thank you to our partners who have supported us to make this event successful. So if you can just play our partners advert for us, particularly the Rwanda Air, we would appreciate that. And then, Doctor, I'm coming back to you. People in Africa, especially the young people, when they see you driving nice car, dressing nice and all that, people think that you got it all covered. Now, after the advert is played, I'm coming back to you. Have you ever had pain as an entrepreneur in your life before? So before you answer that question, let's take some adverts and just thank our partners who have made it possible for us to come to your way.
The Digital SMEs and Career Mentorship Program. The world economy has undergone a massive digital transformation and created a need for startups to adapt to these technologies. We intend to help save women and youth-focused businesses with the skills required to stay relevant. Join the movement today. Register today. HCI, working together to change the startups and SMEs narratives of Africa.
Le programme du mentorat digital et carrière. Le monde économique subit des massives transformations digitales et oblige aux startups à s'adapter à cette nouvelle technologie. Nous avons l'intention de mettre à niveau l'expérience des entrepreneurs. Rejoignez le mouvement aujourd'hui. Enregistrez-vous aujourd'hui. HCI, travaillons ensemble pour changer les narratifs du startup et SME africain.
The first in Africa to earn a diamond standard of safety, offering a more contactless, safe, and seamless experience. Delivered with a smile by...
We want our participants to look at it for us. So I'm launching this poll. Please take your time and respond to these questions online for us so that we can come back to you. So when we finish the poll, the question I'm going to ask you is, have you cried before as an entrepreneur?
I still cry.
Let them finish the poll and then I come back to, because I think this question is extremely important. Now, as you mentioned, Africa is a young population. Many of our youngsters want to go into entrepreneurship. Naturally, we are advocating that after investing, since the jobs are not there, be creative and solve problems in your locality so you can become an entrepreneur. But rather than looking at problem solving, people are looking at the price, the benefit that come out of it. So as an astute businessman with this number of years of experience, what has caused you pain before? Yeah? Okay, I think the poll is almost done. Let me give ourselves the next 20 seconds and then we can end the poll. Wonderful, wonderful, great. Great. The next 2 seconds, and I'm going to end the poll. Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. So let's come back to you. Look, what causes you pain as an entrepreneur? This probably may be the last question because we've already gone just 2 minutes out of our time. What causes you pain and how did you overcome it?
Pain is something that is relative. I was once told when I was a student of a tramp, like a vagabond in the UK, who lived on the streets. He lived rough. He didn't have to dress up much. He'd eat from the garbage. So he lived his life like that and was comfortable. But he wanted his moment of happiness. So he put on shoes that were 2 sizes too tight. And he wears them every day. And he wouldn't get the right size shoe because he wanted to feel the pain so that in the evening when he goes to sleep, when he takes his feet out of those shoes, the pleasure for the relief, that moment is exhilarating for him. But he had to create his own pain because the things we think of as pain is not the things that he thought of as pain. Now, I cannot compare myself to the picture of those young kids who were looking for food and were malnourished. That's a different level of pain. Pain, I must admit, I've not suffered. So we're not looking for food and survival at this stage, but we are looking, the things that cause us pain are injustice. When something happens to you or to somebody around you that is so wrong, that is a travesty of justice. That causes much more pain because they didn't deserve it. The pain I felt when my father died, when I was so young, it was the first cut, they say that's the deepest. It cut me so deep that it changed my trajectory of life. And thereafter, I became quite numb to many other things. Doesn't mean I'm not sensitive. I feel pain, I feel sympathy, all the other emotions, but not as deep as that first cut. I've lost a brother, I've lost a mother. The pain is not the same. I've lost so much money in business. The many times I've fallen, made a mistake, and lost nearly everything. And the banks want to sell everything, and you fight to recover. When I talk about resilience. But that is not pain compared to the pain some of the people go through. Sure. So everything is relative, and you try to avoid pain. And when you have children, you try to protect them so they don't go through the same pain you went through. The question is, if you ever protect them, will they have the same values without going through the pain? Must they but go through that pain to get the resilience and the strength of character and to be decent people, to learn to value, have a set of values rather than to value things and determine life by from that perspective and being good and trying to make this world better? These are questions that are not yet completely answered. But you try, you expose them to the first world, they study there, they come back and they see the benefits, the beauty of what we've got in Africa and what they can do to make change. So you try to inculcate in them the value system that Africa's got to change. We've got to dig ourselves out of this terrible quagmire that we've been in for so long. So pain is relative. I've felt pain, I still feel pain, but not as the way I sympathize with those who feel a lot more pain. And when I see refugees, so I'm involved with refugees to see how can we accept every refugee. A refugee is to be a refugee is a terrible thing. Very. And running away from your own country because your country has turned hostile to you. Sure. And I was a refugee in my own country, but I couldn't afford to leave the country, so I was a refugee. So when I see today our president welcoming refugees from Sudan, from Congo, from as far as Afghanistan, he's showing that heart because he's been a refugee before. So you've got to know that you've walked that journey to have the values that embrace change and be a better person so that we can have better humanity. I'm hoping the first world is seeing what we're doing. And when I speak, I'm not just speaking to the youth, I'm also speaking to our leaders. Sure. We need to have a change in mindset and make Africa a better place. Wonderful.
I mean, this program is aired, like I mentioned, the whole of the continent, and a lot of people are asking for the recordings. Let me say that we're going to put it in YouTube. And so this is going to be running for as long as it's going to be. And for those of you online, this is just the first episode, our first time. We're going to have it every month for as long as we can. And like I mentioned earlier on, our goal is to develop a critical mass of young Africans who would be able to work hard and pull people from poverty, either at their community level, their family level, and what have you, so that by 2063, we can all contribute to the Africa we want, which is called the Agenda of 2063. I'm going to ask you to say to make your last remarks. But before we do so, there's a question that if I don't ask, I may be of disservice to many people. With all the businesses that you've done, you're still looking fresh, very young, very handsome. How have you managed to get all these things going? Do you mind letting us into the secret?
It's not really a secret. It's out there. If you think you can do something, whatever it is, you're providing a good or a service. If you can do it well, do it better than other people, make sure you build a system around it. The system must work. Test it and then scale it. That's what Amazon did. That's what McDonald's did, KFC did. Nearly everybody builds a system and then scales it. Microsoft went global. Today we have the Chinese, Jack Ma going global. His services, his products. You've got to first fine-tune what you've got. And don't feel that everything has been done. New things are coming every day. The people are becoming more discerning. People thought they don't want bicycles anymore. Today the bicycle business, manufacturing business is booming. Everybody was conscious about health. Changes will always happen. So find a niche where you want to do something and then get a system around it. When I say a system, make sure that it can work. And when it's scaled, it's not going to lose out on the quality of the service or the product. You'll maintain that quality. If anything, refine it and keep improving it. As the Japanese say, Kaizen, keep improving continuously. small way, hacking away. When you hit a stone with a hammer and you're trying to break it, the first hammer might not break it. And you keep hammering away. The last punch you make, it shatters. That doesn't mean that the first hammer at the time you hit didn't do anything. You didn't see the impact on the surface, but it began working away. So you keep hammering away until eventually you win. Now, in my case, I delegate. Part of the system building is I get young people as quickly as possible, empower them. I trust them with the keys to the store, with the resources, with the money, the banking, everything is left to them. Then I'm free to do something else. So you delegate. You cannot abscond from the full responsibility. I have to keep an oversight on everything. Build a team of directors, put a mechanism in place to oversee the businesses in different countries, because you can't be everywhere.
Sure.
Then you can have a life. And eventually I believe in human beings being honest and wanting to work hard, especially young people. You nurture them, give them a chance. What they are looking for is the opportunity, the talent they have. So if you give them opportunity and give them space to grow and space to make a few mistakes here and there, eventually the system starts working. It will fine tune, self-correct. Eventually the system is working quite well. Sure. And it is humming like a V8 engine.
Wonderful. By 2063, Africa will be the envy of the world. And majority of the population, as we keep saying, are going to be young people. We have talked about Archimedes principles. We've talked about the Einstein principle. I'm going to ask you to say your last words, but in doing so, indulge me to restrict you by saying that give us the Bitaturi principle, 3 of them.
Like I mentioned some of them earlier. In grit, number 1, grit, take all the words out of grit, your guts, initiative, tenacity, resilience. You've got to take grit. You've got to have grit. That's important. Get up early and love getting up early and love your work. So it's like a hobby. Don't dread work. If you get up every day, then on a Sunday, you want to do something. You want to be creative. You're looking for opportunities. Train your eye to do that. Then it's a pleasure to be alive every day. It's a new opportunity every single day. You get up wanting to do something. And it's not about what you take. That is good to take, but it is so much more satisfying to give. Whether it is knowledge, whether it is money. I'm spending my time now trying to help the youth. Quite a bit of time talking to many young people because I feel I've got to give back. And it is so much more rewarding than taking. So those are the 3 areas where I think people should focus. Build yourself internally first, build your capacity, and that comes from embracing knowledge. Be a machine that absorbs as much as you can, because that won't happen forever. When you're at your peak, you're reading everything, you're going through books on the internet, you're learning so much. It won't happen forever. Now that you've got it, access it, use it, share it, expand it, and you'll feel so delighted. It is so satisfying.
Dr. Patrick Bitaturi, Nyanziza, thank you so much for your time, for coming. We cannot thank you enough for this awesome interaction that we've had with you. I've interacted with you, and I know that you have a heart for Africa, and you are willing to do as much as you can to ensure that we can lift people out of poverty. And we want to say thank you so much. For those of you who have joined us up to this point, we want to say thank you so much for being a part of this program. Like I mentioned from the beginning, this program is not about people who just want to buy a car or build a house or whatever. Those things are very good. But this program is all about putting together a critical mass of young African entrepreneurs whose critical objective is to ensure that we lift people out of poverty by 2063. And so we are aiming at putting together 1 million Africans all over the continent whose responsibility say, I'm going to work hard, create wealth, and put people out of poverty. If you want to be one of them, please make sure you share whatever you have learned with your colleagues, with your friends, with your family members. And when the video is uploaded on YouTube, we're going to make it available to you. And please get people to watch it, subscribe for it, and make sure that we put the principles that have been shared with us here into very practical practice. That's the only way we can break the bond, the back of poverty in our lifestyle. I want to thank Event Warehouse. I want to thank Sheraton Hotel for hosting us. I want to thank East African Business Week. And I want to thank, of course, Sheraton Hotel I've mentioned, and then Rwanda Air I've mentioned. And of course, I want to thank all of you who have been part of this program. Please, let's work together and make sure we can save Africa. Because remember, all the big tech companies are now coming to Africa because they know that Africa is the next continent that the world must look at. Once again, thank you. My name is Emmanuel, and I'm the president of Human Capital. And on behalf of my team, we say thank you one more time. Have a good day. Thank you, Doc. Thank you.